Your leadership friend didn't get weaker. They got watched. Ooh, what are you saying, Tam? Well, with all the Slack screenshots and the recorded meetings and the public reactions in front of people in the hallway and the read receipts on all of your emails, the bottom line is leadership under observation breeds hesitation. Let me say that again for the person in the back of the room. Leadership under constant observation breeds hesitation. And what this does to the human beings around us, they don't think clearly when they're feeling watched. They perform to who's watching. And all of a sudden, we have abdicated accountability and authority, and we've abdicated healthy decision making or decision making at all to performance. And when we do that, we're taking away the very things, the creativity that we hire people for, or that you might have been promoted for in the workplace. Performance for the sake of checking a box kills leadership time after time. And self-censorship in those moments isn't about maturity. It's actually fear dressed up in heels or dressed up in a blazer or dressed up in a suit in the workplace. I want you to think about that for a minute. When we're constantly self-censoring ourselves because we're not sure who's watching, who's reading, right? Who's in the room or on the call that I don't know about. I actually even caught myself doing that in a meeting where I was scrolling through all of the email addresses that were invited to the meeting. And I was like, okay, who's here? Who's going to be? Okay, how do I handle? I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Tam, take back your personal your personal power and step into who you are and why you were invited to the conversation to begin with. Don't worry about who's in the room, what their title is or what their role is. And I'm not suggesting that you go into those meetings and you be disrespectful. Of course not. But me self-censoring based on email addresses on an invitation because I can't tell on the Zoom call because people aren't on camera, and then you've got, people without names. I don't know who's there, whatever. Why ought that change me? Or why ought that change you in those situations, in those meetings? Because the reality is, when you're having a moment to speak in your boldness, that usually often means we're having an opportunity to make a change in an environment or make a suggestion to a team or to a project that can move it forward. And I want you to think about it this way. When you're not changing an environment, you're choosing it. So I could sit back and not offer thoughts and insight because I'm worried about who's in the room. Well, I'm now choosing whatever outcome there is because I'm not bringing my voice to it. So again, I come back to this, that self-censorship that you're doing because of the constant being watched, it's making you softer, not helping you to step into the boldness that you were hired for in the position. And there's a way that you bring that up because the cost of that, consensus replaces clarity, delay replaces direction, and leaders start asking permission to lead, which is what we don't want leaders to do. I'm hiring leaders to lead, not ask permission to do so. I'm going to give them clarity of targets that they're working toward. That's healthy, strong leadership, and go and let them do the work and have the proper cadence of check-ins set up, because you weren't hired to be interpreted. You were hired to decide. And when I'm having to constantly go back to an interpretation of what I think because someone isn't making decisions, it's a problem. And here's the reality. What you do next with this, it's really your move. You can sit and continue to wait for permission, right? Continue to be watched and grow softer and softer because you're afraid of who's on the Slack channel or who's on the Zoom call or who's going to show up in the boardroom for that day. You can wait and grow softer in your leading because you're not leading. You've abdicated authority. It's your move. So what do you do next, and what is your next move? That's up to you to decide. Sit and continue to wait for permission or choose the changes you want to make and go after them. And as the old quote goes, be the change you want to see in the world, or at least start with your office, right? Like start there, start something. Leaders being watched doesn't disqualify you from leading. Self-editing does. When you're constantly self-editing yourself, that's what's disqualifying you. And that's what might be causing other people to question you. But then the conversation gets to change. We get to open it up in a different direction. That's about taking authority and command of your environment. Because you weren't hired to perform in a game, you were hired to decide. You were hired to make decisions, step in, and lead boldly. Yes, ask for help when you need it. No one is expecting anyone, ought to be expecting anyone to be perfect all the time. It's not possible. We're going to make those decisions. We're going to be decisive. We're going to take command of the room. We're going to step in boldly. And if I need to go back and course correct, I'm going to do it quickly. But waiting to be told, given permission, right? Self-editing yourself and censoring yourself because of the room, that fault line is solely on you because you abdicated your personal authority. Stop that. You're better than that. And in the sandbox today, I want you to remember this. You can be the change that you want to see. One bold step forward at a time, one powerful question at a time. Choosing to step in and lean in versus sit back and coast and watch and complain. Check your self-talk. You've been doing negative self-talk about the environment that you're in. It might be time to take a look at it, a long, hard look at it. If you don't like the outcomes, check yourself first, and then you go after the others. That's the power of your personal leadership. And again, I say you weren't hired to perform in a game. You were hired to be decisive in the office with the work. So get after it and decide. Hey, thanks for stepping into the sandbox with me today. I want you to take what you heard and lead with more clarity, with stronger standards and less self-editing, less worried about who's in the room, and more self-confidence that you have what it takes to be in that room. I want you to take a moment to share this episode with a leader that you feel might be underplaying their impact, and subscribe. Just subscribe in the areas so that you don't miss out on what might challenge you next for that next level of leadership you're stepping into. And I want you to remember this last and final. Leadership isn't something you're born with. It's something you grow into. Thanks for growing in the sandbox today. I'll see you next week for another impactful message in the Leadership Sandbox. We're going to disrupt some common thinking in leaders this year. Make it a great day, and God bless.